So today we're starting our two-chapter journey into the next round of colonialism. And this is going to be new imperialism. And bare bones, they're kind of the similar thing. But there are some nuanced differences that I want to kind of address. So up at the top of the page here, you want to put down and actually put a star by this note. You want to put, please, the age of new imperialism and put new imperialism in quotes. The age of new imperialism differs from old imperialism and put old imperialism in quotes or colonialism in style and aggression. It was more purposeful, more thorough, and more controlling in all aspects of colonial life. So let me give you that note again. The age of new imperialism differs from old imperialism or colonialism in style and aggression. It was more purposeful, more thorough, and more controlling of all aspects of colonial life. And we'll kind of touch on this a little bit more as we go, just sort of kind of understand that new imperialism is like colonialism on steroids, where colonialism was completely and totally accidental. It was a bump into someplace new and a holy crap, look what we got type of moment. New imperialism, these are places that, in particular, the Europeans or Western civilization already has contact with. We're just changing the terms and conditions of that contact. So, to start off here, the British, French, Germans, Italians, Belgians, Portuguese, and Russians and Americans all had colonies. You want to put here next to capital B that the Spanish and Portuguese are not really a part of this new imperialism. The Dutch, however, still maintain holdings. And as with everything, even with colonialism during the Age of Discovery, colonial policy is going to depend on time and country involved. You're going to see some that are going to be a little bit more chilled out to the extent that a colonial power can be chilled out, and then others are going to be downright, evil and tyrannical. And the actions and reactions of the colonized people are also going to shape the colonial experience. Remember, that even though it is a European driven or a Western power driven thing, they're not doing it alone. The people that they're conquering are going to have some feedback. They're going to have some pushback. They're going to have levels of cooperation or they're going to have resistance. And all of that is going to shape the imperial experience. So, the first subject here we're going to deal with is industry and empire. And just a little background nugget that I need you to put down here next to Roman numeral 1. Do you want to put, please, here that the 19th century was Europe's greatest age of global expansion, and the 19th century is the European century. pretty much the 19th century is going to be the all European show. These guys have caught up and surpassed all of the other civilizations. And from 1789, which is the beginning of the French Revolution, to 1914, which is the beginning of World War I, Europe is the dominant global power. And of course, there's going to be countries within Europe that are going to have a degree of dominance here as well. And you have to understand here that the Industrial Revolution that we covered last chapter fueled much of Europe's expansion. I mean, here we have the demand for raw materials and agricultural products. And some of these raw materials, like for example, palm oil or rubber, are not going to be able to be produced within Europe. And it's going to be one of the reasons why the Europeans are going to have such a varied collection of colonies because they're attempting to get these raw materials that they need to continue industrialization or continue to grow industrialization. And then on top of that, there's other agricultural products that are also needed as well. And we also need markets to sell European products because we are producing well more than the Europeans can consume. In addition to this, the European capitalists rather also often invested abroad, and the reason for this, you want to put this down here next to three, that it was cheaper to invest abroad and they can make more money. So the catch here is going to be that the investment opportunities that still exist within Europe are kind of few and far between. And those that do exist are very expensive. So only a few people can buy in. But because these colonies are going to be in a very, very raw state, there's a lot of opportunities for investment, even just for the basic building of infrastructure like railroads and roads and shipping companies and those types of things. Now, the catch is going to be because these are not established economies and little depth of information is known about these places, the investment is going to be kind of risky. So the bonus is that it's a low level buy-in. It's an inexpensive buy-in for investment. There's a lot of risk involved, so the likelihood of you losing your money is pretty high. But if you get something that hits investment wise, you're going to be putting a lot of money into your pocket. We also have the growth of mass nationalism in Europe that makes imperialism broadly popular. I mean, this is going to be one of those things that definitely is going to be great power status. In fact, colonies were a status symbol. And you want to put down here next to B, underneath 5, that great powers require great empires. In order for you to be a major European player or a major Western player for that matter, you need to have a big empire. Not only do you need to have a big empire, but you need to have a big quality empire because in order for you to achieve that great power status or maintain that great power status, you have to have an empire backing it up. And it's going to be these industrial age developments that made overseas expansion possible. And we have a couple of these. The big one here is going to be steamships. You want to put down here next to A, underneath number 6, long, made long distance empires possible. Made long distance empires possible. What steamships do is that they're going to speed up transportation. Now, trips like, for example, from India back to Bristol in England previously would have taken, 6 months or better. Sorry, 3 to 6 months. Now, in the age of these steamships, it's going to take around a month to 6 weeks. So it means that communication is going to be much easier. It also means that controlling those empires in times of need is going to be much more efficient. We also have underwater telegraph, which again is going to increase communication. And you also have quinine. Next to C here, just put down in parentheses, just put down a medicine. Quinine is actually naturally occurring, and it's one of those fantastic things that is a natural limiter to malaria. So it's going to allow these Europeans in particular to go into tropical places with malaria and not necessarily get it instantaneously. And then finally, we have breech loading rifles and also machine guns. Again, this is just simply superior technology to what the conquered people have in most cases. You will have some areas in which the Europeans are going to go where the indigenous population are going to have some relatively modern weapons, but they're not going to be the latest and greatest. And if they're not the latest and greatest, then they're going to be conquered just the same. Not only is industrialization going to be a big changer for the Europeans and a big motivator for imperialism, but the industrialization is also going to change Europeans' perceptions of the other here as well. In the past, the Europeans had largely defined others in religious terms, like during the Middle Ages prior to the Reformation, it would have been Christian versus Muslim. As soon as we get to the Reformation, it's going to be Catholic versus Protestant. Um, but now the industrial age is going to promote a secular arrogance among Europeans that was sometimes combined with a sense of religious superiority, that this is what our God has been able to gift us with. And obviously, one of the reasons why, or at least in their mind, one of the reasons why these individuals that they're conquering don't have the same blessings is because they're not Christians. Also, the European opinion of other cultures in Africa and Asia also dropped. You want to put down here next to B underneath number 2 that they're starting to see them as uncivilized. They're starting to see them as uncivilized. That obviously there must be something lesser of them if they don't have the same level of development that the Europeans have. So, and that kind of is going to get wrapped up into a new kind of racism that was expressed in terms of modern science. Now, this isn't anything that comes up just all of a sudden. In fact, the other thing I need you to put down here next to C underneath number 2, that these are Enlightenment ideas gone wrong. These are Enlightenment ideas gone wrong. It's this concept of using reason and logic to kind of articulate or attempt to articulate why there are differences. And it's going to bubble over into this pseudoscience, which is going to be social Darwinism that we'll get to here a little bit later. This, of course, is going to lead the Europeans to have this sense of responsibility to the weaker races. Another way of thinking this, you want to put this down here next to number 3, is that this is the white man's burden. And put white man's burden in quotes because it is something, it's an actual poem that we'll end up talking about. But you want to put here for number 3 is this is the white man's burden and put white man's burden in quotes. And the crux of this, or the core of that white man's burden, is that the Europeans feel as though they have a duty to civilize these weaker races. In fact, you want to go ahead and put a star there by A underneath number 3. And for civilizing, this means bringing them education, healthcare, Christianity, good government. All of this was regarded as progress and civilization. All this, like I said, is going to bubble into this pseudoscience of social Darwinism, which is an effort to apply Darwin's theory of evolution to human history. But you want to put here down next to 4 that this is the manipulation of Darwin's survival of the fittest. And then add to that Darwin did not support this. Darwin's also dead by this time, so dead people don't support much, but Darwin's ideas were not racially motivated. However, social Darwinism is definitely going to be racist through and through.